So this is all the work of the Devil Mother. In the Indian mythology, she has been also accepted as a great power, but she is always having beads of these, what you call skulls, skulls of the killed persons. And she has always a sword in her hand, and her complexion is black and her eyes are red, and she is always keeping her mouth open, and is always wanting to use flesh to eat and wine to drink. So, as we people bring up some goats or lambs, we nourish them, but for eating. And in a similar way, this goddess of power also nourishes all the people of the world, but for its food. And we people are very much attracted by her, because she has also got some powers. There are so many Indian people, they worship gods and goddesses, so many kinds, and also that devil goddess even. But all these are different kinds of negative powers. Some attract in some way, some attract in another way, but our fate is the same, and it cannot change. It is only God's power, which had been working through the Master, that takes the soul out of the limit of this God, of the negative power, so that we enter into the kingdom of God, and we are taken care of by the merciful and forgiveful power of God. And then the negative power of God has nothing to do with us. We are totally taken away from its lap. And when any soul is taken away from its control, then that is a very sad occasion for the negative power. And that is really the happiest occasion which a soul can enjoy. After that, the soul is always to enjoy. The soul is never to suffer a second death, any misery, or any problem, or any trouble, or any sorrow.
This is a very remarkable quote from the Master, which by his description clearly refers to Kali, an aspect or manifestation of the divine primordial mother. Traditionally, Kali is revered as a force that drives away demons and defends and supports humanity. Sant Singh, however, bluntly calls her the mother of the devil, thus classifying her as evil and assigning her to the negative power. This, of course, stands in complete contrast to the teaching of his successor, where this entity is regarded, worshipped, and glorified as God. Furthermore, the Master clarifies that not only she, but all deities without exception have one thing in common: they cannot lead the soul to freedom. Only the God power, which works through the Master, is capable of doing so. The liberation of a soul entails that it is no longer subject to the control of the negative power, that is, the deities and other entities. This loss of control is said to be a very sad event for the negative power, but for the soul, it is the highest and greatest happiness that can possibly befall it. It is then free from suffering of all kinds and will be happy for all eternity. He laments that in worshipping the deities, most people are only worshipping the negative power. With these words, Sant Singh once again draws a clear, sharp dividing line between the deities and God. While the deities are assigned to the negative power, whose interest is to control, dominate, and hold humans within its domain, the positive God power wants to free us from these chains. What is noteworthy in this context, however, is another statement by the successor, which confirms that only the God power can grant salvation, and that one must therefore turn to the highest power if one seeks liberation. He goes so far as to say that it is the duty of all powers in God's service to hold on to the souls. He said this in Pueblo, Mexico, on the occasion of the Guru Purnima celebrations on July 15, 2011. So, at that time, he did differentiate between the God power and all other powers. In doing so, he also clarified that all deities, including the Mother Power and the Creator, Preserver, and Destroyer, belong to these other powers. He thus undoubtedly confirms Sant Singh's teaching. In my understanding, it is a contradiction to now claim that Shiva is God itself, and therefore the highest power. Speaking for myself, I would like to add to the Master's explanations that while the deities may not possess the power to liberate a soul, they could hold back themselves and other disruptive forces that hinder our ascent, thereby eliminating the cause of all our difficulties. The God power would then have a very easy time liberating the souls. It would be a trivial matter because the path itself is actually incredibly easy to walk. The difficulties created for people by all these various powers are the only real problem we face.